4 essentials to consider when assessing a student. So about 4 years ago, when I started kind of putting some of this content together, I started with my manual of all my asanas, okay, or all of my movements, my exercises. And then I started thinking, and I'm like, there's more to functionality and health than that. And I came across a lecture with Lenny Pacharo, who works for the Grays Institute, and he tapped on a few of these things, and I was like, awesome. This is exactly what I was thinking. And so I just kind of extrapolated and expanded on them. And then looked back at my yoga training and other things that I thought, and I'm like, okay, I didn't understand this, and I see that there's value, and in this and that, and I kind of pulled from different avenues, and I was like, okay, I like this. I like this. So nourishment, okay? Take a moment and ask yourself what nourishment means to you, because it's going to be different for everybody. What does nourishment mean for me? What are your students' habits? Eating, mental attitudes about food and nourishment. So we're creating a relationship with our students and getting to know them a little bit more. They're not just number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the mats. You actually are getting to know a little bit more about them, being a little bit more personal with them. And what you find is it's like they're very willing to give up the information, usually. Okay, so could their eating habits be affecting why it is they're cramping up in class? Every time I do this pose, I can't do that pose because I get a Charlie horse or I whatever. And yeah, it may be how they move functionally, but it may also be what they're putting into their body. Okay? I feel very strongly about this. Nourishment before supplement. Okay? So nourishment before supplement. And what I'm saying is that there is a huge industry out there right now, and it's the vitamin industry. Not even medication, prescriptions, vitamins. And there's lots of different grades and there's lots of different kinds. And what I'm suggesting is that if you need to put something into your body, look how you can get it through food or good nutrition first. We may not be able to get everything that we need from our food, then we look for supplementation. And I see just way too quick, grabbing for the pills, and they're usually not very good anyways, and they're not even changing their diet. And I know that that's a process. I'm the first to vouch for that. But think about that for a second, and think about your students. That also can tell you a lot about your mentality of your students and quick fixes. Just give me a pill. But it's a vitamin. It has to be better, right? It's not a prescription. They may still be doing the same thing, just in a healthy way. Exercise can only do so much, and if the nourishment is poor, no exercise will help. Would you agree with that? Mm-hmm. Our outsides show our nourishment on the inside. So when I have students that come in, whether it's a group setting or a personal client, I'm looking at their body. I'm not trying to, oh, look at them. They have a little roll here, or this and that. That's not what I'm looking at. I'm just looking at how they look. Okay, their skin. Do they look tired? Looking at skin consistency. Does it look really loose and baggy, or does it look like it has a lot of blood flow to it? All those components kind of matter. Breath. Looking at, Angela and I have had conversations about tongue, so looking at what film was on their tongue, their toenails, their fingernails, if their heels are scaly or not. These things all mean something, nutritionally usually, not necessarily something physically functional. Hydrate, 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 hydrate. We all feel like there's different things out there telling us how much to drink. 8 ounces, of water, or 8 glasses of water a day, and that's enough. I had a conversation with someone a while ago, actually an Ayurvedic practitioner, and we were talking about people that are actually overhydrated and how that has some linkage to excess belly fat. So we were talking about that component. But typically, when we think about hydration, most of us are dehydrated. Especially in the Midwest, most of us are dehydrated. So when we think about it, we feel dehydrated and we have that taste in our mouth, or we have the headache. We've already been dehydrated for anywhere, I know this is a big span, for 2 to 12 hours. We've already been dehydrated before we feel the effects finally. So it's a really long time we're feeling dehydrated. So I think about how yoga was first practiced, and they asked that you bring no water in, there's no drinking of beverages. Oh my gosh, in today's world, no, I encourage my students. We take pre-programmed water breaks. Okay, grab a drink, let's change it up. You need to get that fluid in the body. Drinking water daily. So the idea is you need 0.6 times your body weight in water daily. And if you're active, it's more. So a rough estimate that I give to my students is half their body weight in ounces. It gets you pretty close. That's at least to give them the idea. And most people will go, whoa, really that much? So first thing, easiest thing to do is, you wake up, have a glass of water. Typically or preferably warm to lukewarm. Add a little lemon or something into it. Clean out your system. You already got your body. First thing you're doing is you're hydrating. First thing. Because then your digestive system can absorb all that nutrition. So I tell all my students, I'm like, who took a glass of water first thing in the morning? I do all this kind of corny stuff in class. And I'm like, raise your hand, and if you did, you don't have to do X, Y, and Z. And they're all like, oh yeah, me. So, bringing these simple, easy kind of knowledge components in and making it fun. IV solution at the hospital, we talked about this. It's water, salt, and potassium. What was the original Gatorade? Water, salt, potassium, a little lemon. And now it's all that junk in there that glows in the dark. Someone said to me just 2 days ago, they were saying that Gatorade will naturally separate, but they add, I can't remember what they said, they add something to the Gatorade so that it doesn't separate and it's more palatable to the eye and the mouth, because most people don't like drinks that separate, but drinks that separate mean that they're natural, mean that there was no additives to it. So I can't remember what the name of it was, but he was saying that that's what they add to Gatorade because it's more pleasing to people. That's what they want to see. They don't want to see kombucha. They want to see everything mixed together. Kind of interesting. Gatorade is a dehydrator. Why do you think it's a dehydrator? Any ideas?
Makes you want to drink more, so you buy more.
Yeah, it's like this vicious cycle. The amount of salt and sugar that they have in there is just leaching water out of the body. That's why you keep wanting more and more and more and more and more. Coffee is a dehydrator. To replace, it's typically 1 to 2. I've heard anywhere from 1 to 6. So 6 cups to 1 cup of coffee. And if you have coffee in the morning and you're saying to yourself, well, I'm regular, you're really not. Okay? So do the coffee test. Don't have coffee one morning. You probably won't go on time. So coffee is a natural dehydrator. It's a natural stimulant.
I just had this conversation with somebody that had switched over to basically the paleo diet, and they were all concerned about their bowel movements. And they're like, I think I have chronic diarrhea. And I'm like, do you have cramping? Distension? No, nothing's wrong. I'm like, okay. But it's just interesting because the inflammation in there is decreased, and now they're going. And I'm like, well, you should really go to the bathroom every time after you eat is really the true test of being regular. And she's like, really?
Well, the bowel's supposed to move like
there's
this.
nothing wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, you're healthy, you're healing your body. She was so excited then and relieved, So it's just interesting when people discover themselves in the gut, right?
In the core.
Yeah.
Because the bowel's supposed to move in a constant pulsing motion. And coffee makes it go like this, and then it makes it stop. So then you don't go for the rest of the day until you have coffee or stimulant again. Then it goes like this, and then you go, then it stops. So that resetting mode means we have to replace with healthy foods to help that bowel get back to a pulsing motion. If you have bowel issues, it starts usually in the digestive system, so it's much higher up. And that's just a whole slew of other stuff. All right, every disease has a day one. Disease is not just cancer. Every disease has a day one. Your foot pain had a day one. Your shoulder pain had a day one. Your headaches and migraines had a day one. So when we think about that, I posed this to a couple of my private clients, when do you think your day one was? And it was really groundbreaking for them to have to look back and go, when did this start? We're often taught, even in kind of more inspirational or trying to change our mindsets, look forward, be in the moment. Sometimes it's okay to look back. One, you'll notice how far you've come, but two, sometimes you'll find more answers to the solution you're looking for. So it's okay to turn around and look back. It may help you draw more lines and connect more dots. Beware of marketing science. Are you falling victim? There is marketing science everywhere, especially in the yoga community right now. all the way down to the kinds of clothes that you wear. Are you susceptible to marketing science? Gatorade, marketing science, one of the best global marketing science campaigns ever. Everybody knows Gatorade. There is no energy in fat, or there is more energy in fat than carbohydrates. So healthy fats, coconut oil, olive oil, looking at those foods, fish, those types of things are all really important. Behavior. So we've talked about nourishment. Now we're looking at behavior. Mind versus body. Okay? So in our body, are we protecting and preserving? So when we look at movements and we look at functionality, we want to protect and preserve the body. And here's something really interesting, and I've thought a lot of time about this. I'm only 29, so I have one more year in my 20s. And as a 20-year-old, we often aren't thinking protect and preserve. We're thinking refine and beautify, right? Okay? So helping someone in their 20s and 30s see the value in protecting and preserving for their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s to 80s. How would you be able to do that? How can we get that point across? They may be more interested in that stuff that just moves really fast and makes you sweat, and then you feel like you don't know what just happened, but you're so exhausted, so it must have been a good workout. Protect and preserve. Path of least resistance. What does that mean? What do you think that means? Path of least resistance.
It's the easiest way. It's like electricity, it always takes the easiest way.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. How do you think that applies? Okay, we're talking about behavior. How do you think that applies to movement, to fitness?
Using big muscle groups.
Doing a workout that's easier as opposed to a workout that is necessary.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
most Western exercise, whether it be Zumba or anything, you're using quads, glutes, biceps, triceps.
Because you have faster results, as they're easier to gravitate towards. They take not as long of time to refine and perfect. Sure. Cool.
Then they feel sore, so they did something great.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get a brace.
You're funny.
And then they feel really great because they have a brace now on their elbow and they're going to do more.
All right, stability, or mobility stability. And this is a term coined by Gary Gray. And so stability, mobility within the action of stability. Okay, so we can't be stable before we're mobile. Okay, our bodies have proven that. The idea of the baby doesn't learn how to walk before it learns to stand. I've never seen a child just get up and run, and if they have, they're like a rarity, okay? They're a prodigy. I want to know them. But the idea is stability. We're mobile within our own stability. Standing leg kick, tree pose, transitioning from tree into warrior 3, or flowing from any asana or any movement from that means. Getting up out of your car and walking, stability. You're washing dishes and then you decide to reach down for something and balance on one foot. You have to be stable and be mobile at the same time. Is it possible? Yes. Are we doing it? No. And we're going to practice that and apply that, and it'll be really fun. Proprioception, one's own individual perception. So when we think about behavior and we think about how we're approaching exercise and movement and life for that matter, okay? Proprioception, what does that mean? One's own individual perception. Perception of what? Of themselves, perception of the exercise, perception of how you are executing it, perception of what they think is healthy. Okay, I think that maybe is the bottom line. What they think is healthy, what they believe is healthy, how they're acting in a healthy way will not be how you perceive it. When you all leave here, you will have had a different perception and a different experience on what you've learned, and you will pull from it differently than the next person. It's awesome and great. That's the whole idea. This is a method. This isn't a style that I'm going to have you sign a legal agreement to that you have to teach it this way or else. This is a method of application. Okay? Pain or alarm. Okay, so when we're looking at behavior, we have these little red flags that happen and go up that tells us, this is wrong, don't do this, okay? This hurts, stop. We've all had that experience, right? Either in yoga or in life. Don't do it, okay? But yet we've been taught to, don't listen to that. You know, keep going, don't stop, pedal to the metal, finish it out. I have a lot of triathletes and marathoners that come here to the studio. And so what I found is that helping them change the mindset that if at mile 20 you start feeling like something is wrong in your ankle, stop. You know, crossing that finish line, how does that have you or make you have a better life? How does that bring value to your life? Maybe your ego a little bit, but you kind of need this Achilles tendon and this foot to function. And what I found is that a couple of my students, but I guess I never thought about it that way. So perception, okay, the alarm, the pain went off, and that's something that I really strive for when I want you guys to go out and be teaching your students and say, listen to your body. My rule of thumb, anything hot, anything sharp, anything shooting, anything numbness, pain, or tingling, stop. I know that seems like a really long list, and I will write it down for you, but make that become just a part of your repertoire and what you say, because those are red flags. Those are alarms that are telling you in your mind and in your body, you need to stop now. And most of our students, remember, they haven't come to stuff like this. They don't know that. I've had students many a times come to me and say, you know, you had me do this in Cobra or in a back bend, and I always thought that that sharp pain in my back was normal, was supposed to be there. And honest to God, this is what one of my students said about 3 years ago. And I was like, no, that's not normal. That's your alarm clock saying stop. Okay, so these are cues that people need to hear. These are words that people need to hear. And it's a good thing because then you're changing their behavior and their mindset off the mat to say that these are that fight or flight. Okay, this isn't right. Gauge their current status. Okay, so I'm going to read through these, and this is how we can kind of think about gauging our current status in an asana or in a movement, in this moment, in life, in any situation. Okay, so these are just some words. You can change these out. Deeply in serenity, mostly at ease, tense, anxious, panic. So remember when I said, are you moving closer towards dis-ease or closer towards wellness and balance? Here's a gauge we can ask ourselves, ask our students. How are you feeling? Are you in the panic stage? Or are you in the deep serenity stage? We're looking at behavior right now, remember. We want to try to find a balance between those two things. You see your students and they're like this. Okay, and it's like relax, and they're just like this. They're definitely not at deep serenity. They may be moving closer towards anxious or panic attack. So looking at this and looking at people's facial expressions, looking at their body language, looking at their breath, we want to move people towards the deep serenity. Okay? That doesn't mean that they're going to be in euphoria and experiencing samasthiti, experiencing, deep shavasana. No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that it's comfortable yet challenging. It means that their body is experiencing balance, maybe for the first time. Body, breath, and spirit, okay? We're bringing all those components together. Are you applying and taking into consideration their behavior? I love this one. You get a type A student come in and you're trying to do stuff with them that is not their personality. Okay, they're never going to come back again. Okay? So how do I ease someone like that into the class? Okay? How do I give them a little bit of type A, to kind of taste their palate and make them feel comfortable, but then also coach them in class to know that just because we're not doing this 190 times, it's okay. Okay? So how you say things, the way you behave with them, and how you move mechanically in the class will go back to, someone's experience and someone's behavior. Equally as much, if you have someone that tends to be more laid back and someone that maybe has never exercised a day in their life, they're not going to be ready to jump forward, jump back, do all this crazy stuff, hold asanas for a long time. They're not used to that. They're not ready for that. So how do you balance those two together? How do you bring a type A person into class? And how do you bring, Susie, that, first-time exercising mother of 4, and then maybe Joe from the gym? How do you teach them all together? Can you? Sure. Okay, because at the end of the day, they all want to move towards deep serenity. They all want to move closer towards balance and further from disease. Let's just start there. Breath, breathing, basic movement, teaching neutral. Because regardless, all 3 of those people need those components, right? And then we go from there. Because we can always tweak the movement a little bit for Susie and for John and for Jim. Okay, lifestyle. So when we think about behavior, we want to also look at their lifestyle. Do they sit all day? Is their job really active? Are they an electrician? Are they a nurse? Are they on their feet all day? Do they work in childcare? They're up and down and they're bending over. Are they a teacher? They're standing on their feet. My sister's a hairdresser, and luckily where she works, they get to wear tennis shoes. But at one time, she worked at a place where they had to wear heels and nice shoes and stuff, and it was like just wreaking havoc on her body. So having a dialogue with your students and getting to know them can be really helpful, because they may not always share every ache and pain with you, but having an understanding about what they do will better be able to help you assess them and also understand their behavior. Maybe they have a super stressful job. So when they're coming into class, they're not angry at you for what you're teaching. It's just they're de-stressing and they're trying to decompress. And so it also helps us as teachers not to take things so personal. Mental attitude towards life, okay? This all leads back to how we move functionally. So what is your attitude currently towards life? Screw it, who cares, nothing works, I've tried everything, but yet they're coming to you hoping one more thing works, but they've already given up. So part of our job is to first rekindle the fire, because we can do all the movements we want with them, but if they've already given up, we first need to work here before we even do anything here. Hang-ups and habits. What are their hang-ups and habits? Okay, what are their vices? I always give the joke, you come to yoga teacher training or you go to yoga class and it's like, I'll meet you at the bar after. It's kind of it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't jive, okay? So what are our hang-ups? We can also look at behavior. Okay, anytime I forward bend, all I'm feeling is the gushy stuff in the middle and it makes me uncomfortable. So my language needs to help portray to that person or persons, feeling more comfortable with this area of the body. So when they bend forward, they're not thinking about that, but rather thinking about how they're moving and how they could be feeling rather than the fluffy stuff in the middle. So when we think about their hang-ups and their habits, it may be, maybe they are a smoker, maybe they are a drinker, maybe they're over-exerciser, but also how they look at themselves mentally, okay, their dialogue with themselves. And we can usually see that just by watching them move and kind of interact with people. This will also reflect back on their energetic body. We know that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The spirit sees the person's emotions or character. Their internal voice, their energetic body, their non-physical. Okay, so when we're looking at energetic, I think from a yoga standpoint, I know I had to really open up my mind that it's more than just the chakras. It's more than just the nadis running through the body. And I found that these basic 4 components kind of crossed over from different modalities, and I like these layman terms. Their internal voice, okay? You can call it your solar plex, you can call it your navel point, you can call it your 3rd chakra. Their energetic body. Yeah, looking at their energetic body, but also looking at their energetic body. I mean, the physical body will show you if they're drained. You will just see it and feel it on a person. And then the non-physical, what they're not saying, what they're not doing, okay? You kind of get that intuition, that type of thing. Teaching people how to listen to their bodies and not their brains. It's a hard one, would you agree? Even just for ourselves. Because what we've been taught maybe isn't true anymore. Or I use the term when we're talking about neutral, our natural isn't the same as our neutral. Okay? If someone stands like this, had a couple kids, or maybe they have severe lordosis, that may not be their neutral. It's their natural. It's just kind of where their body has gone. Maybe predisposed to their sedentary environment, or the fact that they've had several children, or the fact that they always lean onto one foot whenever they're standing, or whatever it is. So there's a difference there. And so when we think about neutral, just because your body goes there doesn't mean it belongs there, people. Doesn't mean it should go there. And I think that's a really important component, and that will reflect back on the energetic body, because then energetically we are realigned. We do feel better, mentally and physically, because we don't have numbness and tingling going down our leg all the time. Be a good side effect. Over-exerciser equals a tense person. Would you agree? Definitely. And so it's like your student comes in and telling them as they're requesting the vinyasa class that maybe they should try a restorative class or a functional movement class. And they're like, how fast do you move? Do you sweat? And it's like, well, no, nope, not for me. You know, it's that need for this. And so then I started asking, why do we need that? So it goes back to their personality. It goes back to their diet. Are they constantly donuts and sugar all the time? You know, are they constantly on energy drinks? Do they have a really high stress job? So there's this illusion, and this is what I've come to the conclusion of just my own experience and observing, is that we oftentimes, this high-paced, high-stress society, feel the need to relax in a high-intense, high-stressed way. Banging music at aerobics after you've just had the most up-stressed day, whether it's in the corporate world or you're a carpenter, that doesn't exactly equate stress relief. Okay? But we're used to this kind of adrenaline overload that then we kind of brought to the illusion that it's adrenaline overload. But the mind is still going a mile a minute. The body is still going a mile a minute. And then we crash at night and we say, well, I sleep good. Yeah, because your body's exhausted. So really bringing that balance mentally and physically into exercise. Movement. So when we think about movement, consider all movements. All movements. The essentials we want to look at: environment. We want to look at position. We want to look at angle. We want to look at something called horizontal displacement. So a displacement is the shortest distance from the initial to the final position of a point. Okay, the shortest movement. Vertical displacement, rate and duration. Okay, so when we're moving, we're looking at one or all of these components all the time. So even if these words mean nothing to you, when we move functionally, they automatically all just happen. Okay, they all just happen. When we think about the big ones, and the two on the bottom I'm going to talk about, rate and duration, these are big ones right now because we typically see a lot of really fast things and a lot of things in major repetition, okay, or short or long durations, like fast sprint and then you'll slow jog, that type of thing. And so those are really important components, but they need to be done with poise and ease because it can be too much of a good thing. And we'll talk about that a little bit. You can overdo something. And we've heard that, you know, overdo it, that type of thing. Have you ever posed that question to your students? What have you overdone lately? Maybe it was the cake last night. Maybe it was too many yoga classes. Can you practice yoga too much? I had a student ask me that. Absolutely. And then they looked at me like they were shocked because they were in my teacher training. They're like, you're telling me I can do too much yoga? Absolutely. Just like you can run too much, just like you can sit too much, just like you can sleep too much. So when we look at duration, it's also long-term duration. I found myself a couple years ago feeling very guilty because I was finding myself desiring to do other things besides yoga. And I was like, but I'm a yoga teacher, and I teach yoga, and I love yoga, and that's what I do. And it was like, but I found myself always wanting to play tennis and go for walks and swim and hike at Pike Lake and do this stuff that had nothing to do with yoga. Okay? It's okay. It's called balance, okay? If you do something for too long, your body's going to need a break no matter what. You can underdo something. And I think this something is not something that we talk about enough because most of what we're doing we are underdoing, but then we look at exercise and we're constantly seeing the overdoers rather than the underdoers. So learning how to push your students a little bit more, but not to the point where it's like, okay, this balance I call comfortable yet challenging. Okay? Pain is not okay. Discomfort is. It is okay for your students to be uncomfortable in class. Okay, so when someone says to me in class, this doesn't feel right or this is painful, before I have them get on, I said, well, is it painful or is it uncomfortable? Do you feel it physically or do you feel it mentally? We typically will feel something mentally before we feel it physically. Or our mind will say we can't before our body will actually say we can't. Ask yourself each day, is this what I need today? Is this what I need today? Do you need to take a yoga class today? Or do you need to go for a walk? Do you need a rest day? Do you need a nap? Do you need a beer? What do you need? It's okay. It's okay. What do you need today? So when we think about health, it's also long-term as well as short-term. Okay, and each day might change. Maybe you do need a more flow, kind of move rigorous class. Maybe you do need a more restorative class. That doesn't mean that you've failed somehow. And, coming from more of an addiction mindset, many of us have that mindset. It's like an all or nothing. I failed if I don't keep doing this, if I miss one day, or if I don't do this, or I hear diet all the time. Diet's a lifestyle. Diet's not something short term. Look it up in the dictionary. It does not say 30-day, weight loss challenge. So when we're looking at diet, it really means that challenge, that change. We move to increase the uptake of oxygen and improve circulation, not to beat up our bodies. So we move to increase oxygen. I try to explain this to students in an elderly fashion. You're having them move so that they keep breathing and their lungs keep working and their heart keeps pumping. They're not looking to lose 90 pounds or 5 pounds or 3 pounds for that matter, or to, kill themselves. So basic function again. And I know as a teacher teaching this type of stuff, it is a slightly uphill battle because people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear basic function. They don't want to hear, this idea that they don't need to be sweating to get a really good workout. I had a student come to class a Friday morning a couple weeks ago, and she said, I felt like I left going, I got this. That wasn't so hard. She's like, all those movements were pretty easy. She said, then I woke up the next day and was like, oh. And I said, that's the idea of good functional movement. It feels great while you're doing it, okay? Then you feel those movements the next day, but it shouldn't last for more than 24 to 48 hours. If it does, you've done too much. Okay, so it shouldn't feel like you're just literally your hip flexors are going to pop out of your groin. That's usually a sign that something's not right. We've all been there. We know that feeling. All movement is an expression of health. Okay, so watching your family members move can tell a lot about how healthy they are. It's very painful to watch one of my family members move. And it's because he's made choices that he knows are probably wrong, but I can tell his state of health just by the way he moves. What do you think someone thinks about you when you move? Not to analyze and self-judge, but just putting out the question there. What kind of state of health are you posing to people around you? It's a good self-reflection. Energy can only be transferred, not destroyed. I heard this and I felt like science was all starting to make sense to me as far as back in high school, which I didn't do well. So it can only be transferred, not destroyed. So what does that mean? It means that no matter what you're doing, it's just being transferred into something else. It's being changed and evolved into something else. Nothing is a loss. Nothing is a waste of your time. It's just shifting into something different. So when you feel like your student says, I've been doing this workout and it's all for nothing, I see no change. No, it's not. It's just a transfer of energy now into something else. It brought you to this point. Mentally, well, I've been doing this and now it's just like nothing. I'm at a plateau or I suck or something happened in my life. No, you're just transferring those efforts to something different. You're shifting. Ropes and bungees. Okay, I love this idea. The body is made on ropes and bungees. It is not made on, let's say, cement, pasta that's not cooked. So when we think about ropes and bungees and pulleys, the body is really buoyant. It's really mobile. It's really elastic-like. It's not like stiff straitjackets. Okay, so if we're moving like that, something is not right. Okay, there's something that's not balanced in our body if you see the robot man walking into your clinic or into your studio. Okay, so we know right there, functionality is not present. Okay, ropes and bungees. So I ask my students, do you feel like ropes and bungees when you move? And sometimes they'll be like, I'm waiting for the answer. Like, you can talk back now. It's okay. And I have some students say, no, I feel like a stiff kite. Or I feel like I'm moving, but I don't feel like I have the flexibility. So asking yourself, do I feel very buoyant, very mobile? Or do I feel a little bit more like a creaky door that needs oiling, greasing? So kind of a cool concept. When you look at a wheel, do you look at the entire wheel or just one spoke? So visualize a wheel right now. And when you visualize a wheel, what do you notice about the wheel first? Okay, it's a circle. Okay.
More than one, the center and the outer.
Okay, so you notice that there's two circles.
And then you see how the spokes line up.
Okay. Okay, so what you're noticing is you're noticing all these little individual things. Okay? So then it's important to then step back and see the whole wheel. It's like the PT syndrome. The knee is the issue, let's rehab the knee. Okay? It's not just the knee, it's the whole body. So if something's wrong with the wheel or the tire, you can't just look at the whole tire and go, oh, you also have to look at the one little thing and then step back again and say, is it fixed now? Or is something else still not right? So there's two things that have to happen as a teacher. We have to look at them individually, one part or one aspect, but then step back and also look at them the whole, and maybe do that multiple times. Would you agree? Kind of that step back and forward. Global and local muscles and areas must be addressed. So when we talk about the core, we're going to talk about 3 different layers of the core. So we have kind of our deep, our local, and our global. Typically our global are those large skeletal muscles, those muscles that the weightlifters like to play on. And typically those are our muscles that will just get us by in daily function if we're not tapping into anything deeper than that. Those will also be the areas that we rely on, especially for people that constantly become injured if we don't ever go deeper. So we're going to really break that down in a little bit. It's not one size fits all. We've talked about that. We understand that. That component makes sense. They don't want to be in a wheelchair, so get them out of the wheelchair. So this concept is like, okay, someone comes into you and they are in a wheelchair. I'm just going to use this as an example because that was what I wrote on the paper. And the idea is that you want to train them in the wheelchair to meet their needs because they can't get out of it. But the goal is to get them out of the wheelchair. So you also need to think about things that help start to present them for regular walking life. So it's not just, oh, I'm in a chair, I can only move, this is all I can do. No, I need to also start preparing their body to get to standing. So what do I need to do with them? We teach a chair yoga. We don't just sit in the chair all the time. We start to squat to get the ladies down eventually to get on the floor. We extend and we bend. We pretend to sit on the chair. We do all these different things that revolve around a chair and maybe sit in the chair, but we don't want to be sitting in a chair our whole life. We want to be moving and walking. So when you look at exercise, that's the idea about doing core work, not flat on your back. How much of your life do you spend on your back? Well, 1/3 sleeping, but you don't really need your core when you sleep. Unless you're a mechanic, there's no value to it. Would you agree? But yet, when we hear core work in a class, we all hit the floor and lay on our back and wait for what's going to happen next. Right? It's true. And there's typically the staple moves. Leg scissors, crisscross, and maybe some sort of leg hover off the floor. Did I hit them? Pretty much, especially in a yoga class. I can't tell you the number of times I see pictures on Facebook from some teachers, no one in this room though, and they're like killer yoga poses, and I know exactly what the picture is before I even see it. And it's like, no, these are not core moves. These are not core moves. They are not functional moves. They will not help you. You might feel like you're hurting because your hip flexors are ready to just scream and your back is arching off the floor, but there's better ways. There's easier ways. There's more effective ways. So hopefully after this weekend, you will not feel the desire to do any sort of core work in that fashion or feel like you need to because you have way more tools in your toolbox. Yeah. Rest and recovery. So this is our 4th point. So rest and recovery. Do we need to expand or cultivate? Okay? I really think that this is a really important point of exercise. And when I was thinking about this training and thinking about these 4 essentials, this is an area we really need to talk about. And in yoga, we kind of have it nice because there's Shavasana. We talk about the value of that. But in the rest of the fitness world, I don't know if there's an exercise that actually has you lay down afterwards. There's not. It's like, nope, go out in your rest of your life, everyday life, and just go do what you need to do. But the body needs to recover, okay? So do we need to expend or cultivate energy? What I'm posing to you is waking up in the morning and saying to yourself, okay, to today or in this moment after work, do I need to cultivate energy, build more up, or do I need to expend it, get rid of some? That will tell you more about the kind of exercise that you need. So do I need to go to the yin class and the restorative class, or do I need to go to maybe move a lot more and do some more flow or do some more rigorous exercise? Okay? Typically as much, never cheat yourself of Shavasana. Core functional fitness, Shavasana. Even if it's 2 minutes, because the body needs to kind of reflect and absorb everything you've just done to it. And helping people understand those benefits is huge, and it's really nice when you're in a yoga teacher training or a yoga studio, because people are already in that mentality and they're like, give me the Shavasana. They want it. Nap versus workout, same thing. Do I need a workout today or do you need a nap? Now you have to look also at the mind. Are you being lazy and you don't want to work out? Or is it that your body is physically exhausted and you need to? Okay, so there's that element too. Sometimes I'll see students, and I know some students really well now. I've had them for over 10 years, and I say, you look really tired. Are you sure you should be here? And I say that because I love them, and maybe they do need to just go home and take a nap and rest, or I tell them, take it easy, don't really push yourself today. It's okay to hear those words. It's okay to say them to people. 3 p.m. siesta. Our cortisol levels drop at about 3 p.m., okay? So that feeling of needing to take a nap is because your body feels like it needs to take a nap. That's why it's usually like the sugar surge, or you need another coffee, or you need the energy drink, or the 12-hour energy. I got to tell this story, and my teacher trainers have already heard it. But my husband, I got him off of them, would buy those 12 or 6-hour energies. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to try it. But I took like a little capful. And then I came here to like do some paperwork and then teach. I was shaking, and I thought I was having like a heart attack or something, because I was just jittery. And I had like a tiny itty bitty like capful of that. And I'm thinking, people drink this whole thing. Okay, their body is tired. Now they're giving their body an energy rush when really they need to sleep. They need a rest. They need a nap. They need to lay down. Your body's natural law. What do you think that means? Your body's natural law. Okay, so your body has a unique blueprint. Your body requires very unique things that the person next to you does not. Okay? We don't need to get into details with our students and explain, you need this and you need that and you need this, but just having them self-reflect and say, what do you need? What does your body need to jive? Maybe you need more calories than the next person. Maybe you need more fats. Maybe you can survive without meat. Maybe you can't. So on a nutrition level, but then also on a mental level. Maybe you do need to check out every single day, okay? Whether it's a walk or a bike ride or a nap, in order to function. Not everybody needs that. Some people, they check out in a different way. Okay, what do you need? What is your body's natural law? Okay, what is it requiring you to do? How do you need to move? What feels good? Injury is a disruption of unity. I love this idea. Injury is a disruption of unity. It's telling you something. Okay, it's asking you. I always tell people that the injury is the last chance for your body to get you to listen. Okay, it's tried everything. Little knocks on the door, little whispers in the ear, little tweaks, little muscle pulls, maybe a sore back when you woke up. It was telling you over and over and over and over again, and you just wouldn't listen. So that whatever happened was the last straw. There was no other option. So we can look at it 2 ways. Crap, this sucks, or okay, I understand now what you're telling me. I'm going to start looking at this differently. So we can also change our mindset. Okay, so in rest and recovery, active, What's active or what's happening? We have our breath cycle. We're always breathing. We never stop breathing. It's the first thing we're given in this life, and it's the last thing that's taken away. Our heartbeat, okay? Our heartbeat shifts and changes. It ebbs and flows based on what we're doing and how active and how healthy our body is. Digestion. Sometimes our digestion is better than others. I tell all my students it's okay if you have to get up and go to the bathroom. I welcome that in class. You know, do that, please. Okay, so digestion, what is your digestion like? Mentally, that correlates. The fog, you probably don't have the greatest digestion. Okay? So looking at how we're digesting life, how we're digesting the things that are happening to us, but also our food. Movement, expend versus cultivate. We talked about that. Give yourself a day off. So remember, we're in the rest and recovery. I always tell people, you know, yoga should be a part of your exercise routine or your 7 days a week, but also should rest and recovery. Maybe 2 days. It's okay to take a day off. Okay, so then there's passive. We have sleep, relaxation. Local rest means just kind of for that moment, you just take a moment for yourself. Meditation and energy work. So these are all passive ways that we can rest and recover. So when we ask our students, you know, what are you doing to recover? I said that to one student. They looked at me like I was speaking Latin or something. They're like, what do you mean? Because usually we're asking them like, what are you eating? How are you exercising? What's your movement level like? You know, pose to your students when you go home on Monday and say, how are you resting and recovering? Interesting concept. Is that a part of your daily life? I know for me, I'm a go, 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 go person, and then all of a sudden I'm like, it's like, Hope, you didn't rest and recover. No wonder you're stressed out. No wonder your body hurts. No wonder your hip hurts. All this stuff, because you forgot one of the 4 essential components to a healthy life and a functional life is rest and recover. Signs. You want to protect and restore, okay? So we're feeling these things. This is a sign that we need to do something. Fatigue is a big one. You know a good balanced workout when you leave and you feel energetic yet calm and relaxed. So you could go work your full day, or you could also go home and take a nap, okay? Signs of a not very good workout, you feel very shaky, okay? When you leave, you're very shaky, you're very uneasy. Okay, maybe you have a restless sleep. The next day you wake up exhausted. It's not because you had a killer workout. It's because it was too much. Uninhibited movement. I was like asking, what does that mean? Uninhibited movement. Okay, things aren't moving the way they should be. Exactly. So someone's coming into functional warrior, which we'll talk about, or someone is twisting and all these other body parts are not moving the way that they should, or they're moving when they shouldn't be. Stimulants. How much and how many? And I think stimulants have become such an accepted aspect that we call them now like a performance drug or a performance additive. They just are so accessible. I go to Quick Trip and get my gas, and it's like I see these people, you know, coffee and then 2 of those energy monster drinks, and then they buy a 12-hour, and then they got like a pack of 6 donuts. And it's like, whoa, you know, just thinking about, I hope that's not all for them. So when we think about this, how many stimulants, ask yourself right now, how many stimulants are you taking in right now on a daily basis? Hopefully it's minimal. But for a lot of your students, I bet it's way more than you expect. So then when we come to yoga, or we come to core functional fitness class or Zumba class or whatever, and it's not jiving or they're having a reaction to it, it's usually not you or the class. It's all this other stuff that they're bringing to their mat too. So we need to remember that as teachers. Repair and re-energize. Okay? So when we're repairing and re-energizing, we want to think about balance. We want to think about addressing the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. And then finally, soreness is not that healthy. It takes time for the body to restore and recover, and we need to focus on that. Does your practice or yoga practice cultivate energy? We just went over that. Drugs suppress our natural alarm. This is the big one. My waiver form has, are you taking any medications right now? Why? Because it suppresses our natural alarm not only to feel things, but also to think things and feel things mentally as well as physically. Just because it's an antidepressant doesn't mean it's not affecting your physical body. Just because it's Plavix thinning your blood doesn't mean it's not going to affect your heart rate or how you feel things or move cognitively. So all these things matter. Even if you don't know what every medication means, because I don't, I just ask questions. What is this for? How long have you been on it? What is this supposed to do? Those types of things, or I get on the internet and try to research it a little bit. But just keeping in mind that those things do affect it. And I think for me, as a virgin yoga teacher at one time, I was not aware of any of this stuff. I mean, I just go and do my routine and teach and go home. And I think at a level that's okay, but we're all here because we want to learn more, right? We're all here because we know that there's more to it. That's not good enough anymore. Would you agree? Like teaching the postures, you know, is maybe not doing as good of a service as you could be to your students. And that is really important to acknowledge, and kudos to all of you.